This is Sarnia Lambton Daily for Monday, June 15th. Good evening, I'm Terry Doyle. It was the announcement many in Sarnia Lambton had been waiting for the past 7 days to hear. Premier Doug Ford walked to the podium at Queen's Park this afternoon to announce that Sarnia Lambton was among the communities being allowed to move to stage 2 of reopening this Friday.
I want to thank each and every one of you because it's your commitment, your dedication, and the progress we've made together as a province that has saved lives and sent more people back to work as we continue to reopen the economy. And over the weekend, our team crunched the numbers. Our Chief Medical Officer of Health and the command table reviewed the data and provided the recommendations. On their advice, I'm excited to announce today that as of this Friday, the following regions will be able to enter stage 2. Durham, Hamilton, York, Halton, Niagara, Haldimand, Norfolk, and Sarnia Lambton County. This will mean more people going back to work at restaurants, bars, beauty salons, shopping malls, and many other businesses, big and small, in those regions.
Stage 2 means that businesses such as hair salons and restaurant patios can open, but physical distancing rules must still be observed. This takes effect as of 12:01 a.m. Friday. Toronto, Peel Region, and Windsor are still being held back at stage 1. With more on this, let's go down to Sarnia City Hall and joined by Mayor Mike Bradley. And Mike, I guess one of the things that when the province makes an announcement, now it's time for the municipalities to figure out what's been announced, what can open, what can't. And I guess it's kind of been going on since day one, but here we are once again on this Monday, I'm sure having to deal with the emergency control group and your other partners to interpret what the province has said now with stage 2.
Well, that's always the challenge, Terry, and naturally people will turn to the mayor, city hall, city councillors to ask for interpretations. I'm hoping, and I've expressed to the two MPPs a number of times, just give us clarity. If you're bringing down a rule, and I'll give an example that was confusing the last time when we didn't make it to stage 2. At the same time, they said we could be like the rest of the province and have churches open with 30% capacity and also 10 people could assemble. That confused people. So we end up being the people that try to separate that out for people, try to communicate it. I did ask today on the primary control group with the announcement of stage 1 to stage 2 that we also be prepared to put out more information to the public to, I guess, assist the province in understanding that. One thing people should understand, if you move to stage 2, that still means you're probably 2 to 4 weeks away from stage 3, depending on what's happening in your local community. And that's one reason why I wasn't supportive of a regional approach on this. This past weekend, there were numerous media stories about people from Windsor going to Chatham, people from Sarnia going to Chatham-Kent or to London, people from Owen Sound going to London. I found that it really confused people, and it wasn't stopping the spread of the virus, which is the whole key of trying to deal with this issue.
Is it also confusing, and I know running our social media site, for example, the part that came out late last week that a funeral ceremony could have 30% capacity if it's indoors. A funeral ceremony outside, or wedding in both cases, could have up to 50 people. But if you wanted to have a reception, it was only 10 people. And I clarified to people saying, well, that's where the little egg salad sandwiches come in after the fact. But I guess comparing a ceremony and a reception, it's wording like that I'm sure people in political situations might understand, but for the average person, it doesn't.
Well, it then comes down to when people are asking the questions to us, is we refer them, we try to the places they should be talking to, and we don't want to be, and I don't want to be in a role of trying to interpret. And I've had a number of people go, should we have our event go ahead? This is pre this last month or so. And I would say to them, look, that's your decision, but you better consider the fact you probably will have 50% of the capacity of people coming that you had last time. And so I don't like to interpret things for other people unless it's really straightforward. I mean, the 10 gathering rule is still there. The announcement last week was very puzzling about the sort of the bubble of up to 10 people, but you can only be in one bubble. I think that's going to be very liberally interpreted by people, and I just guessing many people will be in 2 bubbles or 3 bubbles. It's difficult for me because I've got to find 9 friends, and as you know, Terry, in politics, finding 9 friends is difficult, especially these days.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things you look around. It's almost like hockey trade. Somebody, you in the hockey comparison said, you could do a trade deadline situation, see if you could trade from one bubble to the other. Or if you've got somebody in your bubble, you don't like them, you can maybe see if you can find another bubble to pick them up, and you can have a lot of fun with it from that standpoint. As we move forward, we saw, for example, the province announced childcare could open. But then the county, and I know it's the county side of it, but they said, well, that's fine, but we have some spots that still aren't ready to open. We need to put things in place. We saw with some things, the province gave warning, at least said, okay, a couple weeks, when the time is to open, you can do this. Is that kind of, do you find, slipping through a little bit where some places don't necessarily know all the rules to open, yet are being told, hey, go ahead and open, and now once again, it's on the local, it's on the business owner, it's on the municipality, sort of downloaded from the province?
Well, the daycare is a really good example. The Premier makes an announcement with 2 days notice that daycares can open. Well, the daycares weren't open. The county, they're not ready, and they weren't ready. And the same across the province. It was quite an uproar, particularly in the Toronto area, because people would call or email and say, oh, but the Premier said you can open on Friday. But they can't do the things they need to do. And it's very, very tricky in the daycare business to bring children back in, to have all the things in place that you need to try to protect them from engagement with each other and from the teachers, and the teachers vice versa. So it seemed to be a political announcement, and it would have been good if they'd said, look, in 2 weeks, the daycares across this province can open, and that gives them the time to do that. Now, what happens when you move from stage 1 to 2 and 2 to 3? They make the announcement on the Monday, and then it's Friday, it's implemented. And that gives people a bit of time to adjust. I do know from dealing with many different restaurants, in particular across the community, that they're preparing for that stage 1 to stage 2 movement. And that gives them some time to get ready, get what they need to do, try to get staff back in place and all that. It's giving proper notice. And that's been a challenge throughout this. And again, I try to be respectful of the fact that this is all new ground for the province and for us. But it's become difficult on occasion, because when people hear something can open, they automatically assume it will. And I'll give you a good example in the city of Sarnia. We have cut close to $2 million in costs. There's a further report going to council, I believe, next Monday, that talks about some more cost cutting. It shows that we're holding our own with the loss of revenue versus the things that we need to operate the city. And what we're doing is preparing ourselves for the fall, because when the CERB money runs out and the defaults start to happen with businesses that can't continue, we're going to see more financial impact on the city. So that's what we're trying to do. But when the Premier said arenas could open for under certain conditions for a certain level of sports, people automatically assumed that we would open the arenas. We have cut that staff for this summer, because we can't afford to have them to keep our costs down as we still brace for the rest of this storm. And I do think out there, Terry, there's a feeling, because areas are opening up, and that's good, and other things are happening, that this is over. This is far from over. And the only good thing is, down the road, if we have a second wave, we are better prepared. I didn't know what COVID was 3 months ago, and we now know what we need to do, and we'll have a lot of the protections in place to deal with that second wave. That is good. But no one should assume that we're even close to the end of this, even though we seem to be moving in the right direction. There are many things happening that could push us back up right away.
I know people's patience is running thin at times, but is this where almost patience is going to be even more important? You talk about places, for example, churches with the 30% capacity rule. A lot of churches said, no, we're not ready to open. I know couple have said September or October maybe. They want to get through this time, where versus the other side, people are trying to burst out the front door. Is that where, as community members, everyone needs to still kind of keep working together and knowing, hey, yeah, you want to go to that place on Monday? Yeah, the business owner says I need another week. Just give them another week.
I would agree, but patience is difficult right now for all of us. Let's be honest, we're all fatigued from this. I think we're on our 90th day as an emergency group of talking every day at 9 o'clock. You see the things happening in the community where people are worried about their financial future. You've got the stresses on your personal relationships if you've been together for these days and then been isolated. So I understand it, but patience is important. I'm not notoriously well known for my patience, but I've accepted, if we're going to get the community to a better place, we're going to have to take the steps that will get us there, and do it so we don't create more issues for ourselves by gathering together and doing things we shouldn't do.
I know at the last council meeting there's been discussions about patios, and of course the province has said that patios at stage 2 can open, and maybe making arrangements for some downtown restaurants to give them some more space. Is that something we can maybe expect to see at next Monday's meeting, some further discussion on that?
I'm not expecting further discussion, because we've recently opened up the rules, and the province has allowed the Alcohol and Gaming Commission to sort of fast track things. I hope they will do that. And our changes were not just for the downtown. We have requests from other places that I've had over at Northgate, over the London Centre where Teppermans is, owned by the Dawsons. And so they're preparing, those restaurants out there are preparing to move forward. And both the ones I just referenced to without giving their names, they don't have patios. But the new rules allow them to have patios out in the parking lot. And I know it's not the answer in the long term, but it gives them some hope and it gives them a chance to get some cash flow and get some customers back into the area. So you're going to see us, we've given the green light, and we're hoping that the province will, with their Alcohol and Gaming Commission, do the same thing. And they're not going to charge the fees, just help them get set up and move forward. We've also had, I just had a conversation with Alan Calvert from the Chamber, the new leader of it, on Saturday about closing streets. We will do that if we think it works for everyone on the street and if requests come in. And it's not just about downtown. I want to stress that. The rules that we are bringing forward and have brought forward are to assist anyone in the city, particularly in the restaurant business, to have a patio. And if I understand from a conversation this morning with our group that they can transfer their liquor selling area out into the area that they want to use as a patio. And, you know, I love patios. I think everyone does. So this is going to be an opportunity as we go through this. I'm hoping a number of those patios will remain when we go back to some sort of normalcy and make the city more exciting.
Is maybe a little benefit that we can kind of see what some other areas have done and see what worked and didn't. I know, for example, Peterborough, that I'm very familiar with, they closed their main street Friday night thinking, sure, more room for patios, more room for pedestrians. The business owners screamed and said, no, 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 we wanted maybe a lane closure, not a whole street, because now there goes our curbside pickup, there goes for non-restaurant businesses. So rather than closing the street, said, no, maybe a lane. So they actually reopened the street for the weekend. They said, oops, never mind, that was a big mistake. I guess at least maybe we can look around a little bit and see what other places, you know, we're not in a unique situation. Other people have dealt with it. You know, there's no unique ideas. If we can steal a good idea from somewhere else, go for it, rather than just sort of that Sarnia approach.
Well, I agree. And that's one of the precautions I've been telling people about the street closures, is that you also make it very difficult for people to get to the retail there who have that single access point for pickup and for sales. So you've got to look at it. I mean, you can look at Front Street. Maybe we close one lane, or maybe we do something different on Christina. If it brings people down, but we also got to have them come down, and they still got to do the things that they're being asked to do, which is the social distancing. The stores still need time to get set up properly to deal with customers and how to bring them in and bring them out safely. So it's tricky, but in these times we're open for ideas and we're open for the debate. So I'm glad you mentioned Peterborough, because that's the sort of thing you need to know, that there are some downsides to doing that. But again, we're open for creative ideas. And I've seen in a number of communities what they've simply done is move the street out into a couple of parking spots in front of a restaurant in particular, so they can have a patio. And I did talk to a downtown owner very recently. We could do that and still keep parking around for retail in particular, but give them a chance to have people out on the sidewalk, out into the parking, which normally would be there just for cars. So there's some creative things we can do, and there's some creative things business can do too.
Speaking of creative things, we know over your right shoulder on the desk we see the Mayor Mike bobblehead. A social media star throughout this has been Baby Yoda, which I understand is a new hire, you might say, or a new teammate at City Hall with one of the staff there to help boost the morale a little bit.
Well, it is. And unfortunately, apparently he takes Mondays off, or otherwise he'd be up here today. Lauren in customer service, it's her Baby Yoda. It's a cute little creature. And we started joking around about it. And what happened was, he is the morale booster. Customer service down there has taken over 1,000 calls on COVID. They're the COVID hotline when people call in City Hall. So they deal with some really difficult calls and some difficult people on occasion. But this is what keeps them going. So I've borrowed them a few times, and to great, response to people who follow the social media that I do. And it's been fun because you need it. You need these outlets. You need these jokes. I had a picture of him last week in Air Mustang driving. I mean, it's fun because we need, and that's what I try to do on my social media. Yes, there's a lot of serious stuff, and there's a lot of stuff people debate, but there's also things that can make people smile. And that's what Baby Yoda does. But I didn't know he got Mondays off. I'll tell you, next time we do this, he'll be here for sure.
Well, we'll have to make sure, but I'm sure Baby Yoda is safely at home, social, physical distancing, and probably ordering in takeout right now.
Yes. Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Mike. There's Sarnia Mayor Mike Bradley joining us here. Stay tuned. You're watching Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Welcome back to Sarnia Lambton Daily. In other news tonight, Blue Water Health now says they have 0 patients in hospital with confirmed COVID-19. The final patients have been discharged, including residents who have been returned to Vision Nursing Home. The local medical officer of health says this is good news, but people still cannot let their guard down.
It's a nice thing. I would note that these situations are dynamic, right? So they have no patients currently, and at any moment that could change, right? So that's important to know. But having said that, it is also part of a set of indicators that help us to say that the rate of COVID cases is fairly low here, and that might correspond to a low risk overall. There is a difference between going to the hospital because you need the level of treatment and care that the hospital provides and what happened here, right? So what happened here, I would say many of the folks who went to the hospital did not necessarily require the level of care of the services of the hospital, but it was a decision that was made to help potentially help the home to manage the outbreak. And so really, yes, nobody is going back who is deemed to be actively infectious, but I wouldn't suggest that their admission to the hospital was an indicator of the severity of their disease.
The overall numbers for Sarnia Lambton show 276 confirmed cases of COVID-19 have been diagnosed in the region since the pandemic began. That's an increase of 1 in the past 24 hours. The death toll remains at 25, with 235 people recovered, up 2 in the last day. That leaves 16 total active cases in the area. As we saw earlier in the show, the Premier and members of his cabinet spoke this afternoon about this Stage 2 reopening that includes Sarnia Lambton Friday. Business and tourism were a big focus of the discussion, so let's bring you some more of that now.
Last Friday, 24 of our 34 public health units moved into Stage 2. This Friday, as you've heard today, another 7 will take that important step. While our focus remains on safely reopening the rest of the province, the work of restarting a $700 billion plus economy is understandably complex. That, as we saw this weekend in the regions across Ontario that reopened, gave us confidence. We saw people acting responsibly towards each other by following public health advice. We saw businesses doing their part by taking the public health guidance seriously and by working together to build confidence amongst employees and customers. A great example is the Post promise, which calls on businesses to take 5 key actions to stop the spread of COVID-19. Over 100,000 companies are participating in this initiative to assure customers and staff they are doing their part to protect Canadians' health. I want to congratulate the Business Council of Canada, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, the Retail Council of Canada, Restaurants Canada, and the other organizers of this important initiative. We know that if people know what they need to do to fight COVID-19, they will do it. So we'll continue our public service advertising to communicate guidance in a timely and clear way. I encourage employers to visit ontario.ca/COVID to access over 100 workplace safety guidance documents and helpful videos that we've made available. Or they can call 1-888-444-3659 if they have questions. We all need to continue doing our part. Work is underway with the input of thousands of people across our province, planning for what is required to ensure a strong recovery here in Ontario.
This pandemic has certainly been like nothing we've experienced before, but so has the response from business owners, workers, and families. The response has truly been extraordinary. And thanks to those ongoing efforts, we will recover and ensure our economy emerges stronger than ever. Through the Ontario Together portal and the Ontario Together Fund, we have mobilized Ontario's manufacturing and innovation might. Thousands of businesses are developing Ontario-made solutions. Today, we are pleased to announce that we are investing through the Ontario Together Fund more than $526,000 into CSA Group testing and certification. With our government support, the Canadian Standards Association will add new capacity to test and certify medical-grade protective equipment, including masks, surgical gowns, and gloves. The project will ensure that critical products are tested, inspected, and certified right here in Ontario. This means we can be more self-sufficient as a province and better prepared for the future. Our entrepreneurs and innovators are the best of the best. They've stepped up with solutions to help us all at a critical time. With more regions entering stage 2, we will continue to prioritize made in Ontario solutions to ensure a safe reopening and recovery. Together, we will ensure Ontario continues to be prepared for all circumstances, rebounds from this pandemic, and maintains its place as the economic engine of Canada.
The past few months have had a devastating impact on Ontario's heritage sport, tourism, and culture industries. We were hit first, hardest, and will take the longest to recover. Before COVID-19, these industries fueled a spectacular double bottom line, contributing more than $75 billion to the provincial economy and enriching our unique cultural identity. Now, they face the daunting task of overcoming a triple threat: the public health, economic, and social crisis brought on by this pandemic. It's why we were proud to immediately flow more than $200 million to support these critical sectors, in addition to these next steps. We're investing $13 million to encourage Ontarians to explore the beauty of their own backyard. We're launching virtual platforms like Ontario.live to help small businesses extend their online reach. And I'm embarking on a province-wide tour to showcase what I like to call the world in one province. By focusing our support through local marketing campaigns and staycations, we'll be ready to welcome the world back to Ontario when it is safe to do so. Until then, I'll be in Niagara Falls on Friday to celebrate its reopening, and will continue to work day and night to restore consumer confidence in our heritage sport, tourism, and culture industries.
Beginning this Friday, our government will allow more regions to ease restrictions and enter stage 2 of the reopening process. The reason we're able to do so is in no small part thanks to the considerable and ongoing efforts of all Ontarians to stop the spread of COVID-19. Your continued diligence with physical distancing, wearing face coverings when needed, and hand hygiene has helped to make today possible. Because of these efforts, and as the Premier just announced, 7 more regions will enter stage 2 on Friday, joining the 24 other regions that reopened last Friday. We are making progress in our fight against COVID-19. There's no question. Every day, a clear majority of public health units report fewer than 5 cases, with many of them reporting no new cases at all. Ontario's testing is at historic levels, with the province now having processed over 1 million tests. As a result, our positivity rate remains at all-time lows. At a local level, public health units continue to conduct rapid case and contact management to ensure we identify and isolate new cases to contain the spread of COVID-19. Together, we're moving another step forward and doing it in a way that maintains our first priority: the health and well-being of all Ontarians.
Stay tuned. You are watching Sarnia Lambton Daily on your TV. Recapping our top story tonight, Sarnia Lambton can move into stage 2 of reopening as of Friday. That means restaurants with patios and hair salons are among the places that can open up if they are ready and can follow physical distancing rules. That's our show tonight. Thank you for joining us. We will see you back here tomorrow.